Alright, YouTube. Today I'll cover with all of you what I carry with me in my bag. I bring this with me on every outing that I go on. 99% of the time, I actually take it with me out on the trail. There's the 1% of the time where, for whatever stupid reason, I decide to just leave it in the car because I don't think I'll need it. And it ends up being that 1% where I'm looking around the trail, not seeing a lot of people, where I start to think that maybe it would have been a good idea to bring my bag. So there are times where I just decide that I want to just leave it in the car, that I'm not going to need it. And like I said, those end up being the times where the trails aren't as well maintained, there's not a lot of people around, and I just would have felt more secure if I brought my bag. The intent of this bag is really set up so that if I need to spend the night in the woods, I can. Fully loaded out, it's about 14 pounds, minus food and water, but it covers all of those essentials that I think I would need. This bag is an REI Trail 40. I've got stuff kind of all scattered throughout the various pockets. Someday maybe I'll do an actual review on this bag. I've tried replacing it a handful of times, but everything that I've tried out, I just don't like as much as this bag itself. I've even tried a larger version of this bag and it's just not what I need. Okay, so to start out, the first item that I have is my first aid kit. I like this one because it's bright red. It says right on the label, first aid kit. Inside of it, I do keep some Tylenol. I have some Neosporin. I have some finger splints, so that if I break a finger or whatever, I have some way to secure that. I have a tick remover. Haven't had to use this yet, just picked it up. Got some tape. And then inside of there is scissors, tweezers, a bunch of band-aids, prep kits. All right, next we have a reusable ACE bandage. So if I sprain an ankle, whatever it might be, sprain my wrist, I can use this, help tape it up. Keep 2 things of Tums in my bag as well. I get indigestion, so if I eat something out there, some Mountain House meals, whatever it might be, these are great because they help with my indigestion. The next items that I keep are some Quick Clot. The intent of this is to help stop the bleeding quickly. So if you cut yourself severely and it doesn't want to just stop with regular pressure, this will help with that. You open up the bag, you apply the dressing on it, wrap it up, and it should help stop that bleeding. Additionally, I keep a tourniquet. This is a cat tourniquet. It has a label on it where you'd write the time, so that way when you put the tourniquet on, you mark it down. Paramedics, whoever come along next, they'll know what time that was applied to the wound. So that's the top pocket of my bag. That's where I keep all my first aid stuff. It's quick and easy to get at if I need it in an emergency. Again, the whole point of this bag is so that if I am stuck out in the woods for whatever reason, I can spend the night there. A lot of reasons why people would get stuck in the woods. It's not just a matter of I was out hiking and oops, I forgot what time it is. You usually get hurt or you get lost, weather changes, whatever the circumstances might be. That's what I want to address with this bag, right? Because that's what typically is going to get you stuck in the woods for the night. All right, next, let's move into the main body of this bag and what I carry in there. There is a lot of stuff that I keep in here. It's always evolving, but I always like to make sure that I keep the same stuff in here. If I take it out, I make sure it gets put back, right? I don't ever want to be out in the woods and find that I don't have something because I left it back home in a different bag. Okay, the first 2 items that I carry with me are 2 headlamps. Every time I go out, I make sure that the batteries work. I check them. I actually found recently that one of the battery in this one wasn't working, so I replaced it before we hit the trail. I do try to keep my bag set for 2 people because usually it's my wife and I going out on the trails, so I want to make sure that there's enough in there for 2 people. I do expect my wife to carry some of her stuff, but things like a headlamp I can easily throw in there. Plus, there's the old adage that 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So even if it is just me, I have 2 sets of headlamps. Next, I do have some repair patches. I can put this on, you know, a raincoat. I do keep a tarp or cover that coming up here. Plus, you know, for out tenting it, you know, I have my tent with me. I have a patch. If I get a hole in my tent, I have some way of repairing that. This is also some repair tape as well. Same purpose. I picked this one up recently at a outfitter up north along the North Shore. So I just threw it in my bag, haven't done anything else with it. But I've been carrying this with me for a while. Same concept. If I get a rip or a tear in my tent or in my raincoat, whatever, I can fix it. I also keep some Gorilla tape. You can do the same with it. You can patch holes with it. But if you also cut yourself and you're in a pinch, you can use this as a way to stop that, right? Stop some of that bleeding, apply some pressure to it, cover that wound, protect it. Whatever the need may be, this can help with it. I keep a knife sharpener in the top of my bag as well. Usually when I'm out hiking, I'll carry a knife with me in my pocket. I do keep one in my bag as well. A couple knives in my bag, and we'll cover those. But just a quick little knife sharpener if I need it. I can touch up a blade. This is the Falkneven DC4. Okay, now let's move into the main body of my backpack. This is where I keep most of my stuff. This is most of my really needed items. All right, so this is what I keep in my main compartment of my bag. This is most of my go-to survival stuff. So to start out, I do keep a hip bag in there. I usually don't carry it with me in addition to my backpack. It's more of a side option. So if I want to leave my bag in the car, I can grab this. I can throw my keys in it, my wallet, my phone, whatever it may be. I really don't like walking and hiking with a lot of stuff in my pockets. So that's what I have this in there for. Next is some bank line. I love this stuff. I prefer it to 550 paracord. This stuff, you can cut it, it doesn't fray. You can unthread it a little bit, break it into separate strands if you needed. This is great stuff. Unlike paracord, this does not stretch before it breaks. Paracord will stretch more. It's not an ideal material for tarp lines, or ridge lines rather, for a tarp. Whatever it might be, because they will stretch out over time, and you will have to go back and tighten up your tarp a bit more often, or your clothesline, or whatever it might be. Next, I keep a bigger container of QuikClot in my bag. This keeps or has the gauze. It's got a trauma pad. It's got gloves, duct tape, triangular bandage, sterile gauze dressing. It's got 4 of those. Conforming gauze bandage, antiseptic wipes, a resealable bag, and a trauma response instructions. So this is a good thing to have. I do keep a large SAM splint in my bag as well, so if I break my leg, break an arm, I have a way to immobilize that. In addition to that, I do keep a shmag. This can be used to help hold your arm closer to your body, helps tie off the SAM splint, whatever it might be. You can also use this to grab hot items out of a fire. If it's cold outside, you can wear it as a scarf, provides some better insulation that way. I also like to keep a pair of gloves with me, mostly like if I'm hiking around in bushy area, I need to get through some underbrush. This could help from poison ivy, whatever else might be in the brushes. Gives you a little bit more grip on your knife or whatever it might be that you've got. So that's good. Next from there, I keep a blaze orange vest so that if I'm lost in the woods, I can use this to signal for rescue. I can put it into a tree to mark a trail with. I can, if it's deer season, I can put this on so that people don't mistake me for a deer, whatever it might be. I also like to keep some water purifiers or water filters. So this is a bee-free one. It's a 19-ounce bottle. If it comes jammed, your filter, you can just swirl it around in a stream. It helps to clear those jams. I also keep a life straw. I got 2 of these. So one of, 2 filters each for my wife and I. All right, next let's talk about my bush pot that I keep. So this is by a company called Toaks. If I need to boil water, this is what I can do it in. I sometimes will keep a bag of tea in this, but within it I have some alcohol, I've got a lighter, I have an alcohol stove, and a pot stand. So if I want to cook up some, hot tea, I can, use this for that. If I've got a water supply like a stream, I can boil water in it. I could also use the fuel here to help start a fire. So that's what I keep this with, right? It's another option to keep and get water. It's got a bail with it, so I can suspend it over the fire. I can use a Swiss Army knife or pliers, whatever I might have on me to help get that out. So this is a great thing to keep with you in the woods. All right, with that, the alcohol stove, I also do keep a windscreen so that it helps protect the fire within the stove from being blown out or getting out of control and blowing out onto the grass. So I always keep that with me as well. I do keep a raincoat. This is great. It folds up into itself, has a nice little zipper pocket where you can store it in its own body. That's great to have. In addition to that, I have a tarp. This is by War Bonnet Outdoors. This tarp has an 11-foot ridge line. I can suspend it between two trees and use it to seek shelter either from wind, rain, snow. If it's a hot sunny day, I can use it for shelter from the sun. Helps keep you cool. If I have to spend the night and it's a cold night out, I do have a SOL Survive Outdoor Longer bivy bag. That'll help reflect the heat back at me. This is a extra large, so it will accommodate 2 people. From there, I have a dry bag. This is something I recently picked up. I have yet to use it. The wife and I were up in Ely, Minnesota. We were going to do some kayaking around a resort that we were staying at. Thought this might be good to keep some stuff in it, keep it dry in case we got wet, whatever it might be. But I also can keep this in my bag to then keep the contents of the inside of that bag dry. From there, I have a fire kit. And like I always say, I love redundancy, right? So 2 is 1, 1 is none. So on this side here, I have a ferrocerium rod. This combined with a striker will make a lot of sparks. These work great. You just scrape the ferrocerium rod. It'll send a shower of sparks on whatever you're trying to start a fire on. I have a pockets bellow. It expands. You can blow air onto specific areas of the fire that you're trying to get going. Keeps your face out of the fire, keeps you out of the smoke. So that's a great item to keep with you as well. I have a fire starter bag. You can rip this open, pour out the contents. There's waterproof, windproof. They work great. They say you can make up to 4 fires. Usually I just throw the entire bag in the fire pit, light it up, just go from there. Usually works well. I do of course keep another lighter with me, so this makes about 3 that I carry with me during any given trip. I have what's called Mini Inferno by Self-Reliance Outfitters. These are great. They're little waxed cotton tabs that you can break up a little bit. These will take a spark. You can light them with a lighter, of course. If your tin is empty, you can use this to make char cloth as well. So this is a great item to have. I have some military trioxane tablets. There's 3 of them in here. You can cut them up into sections. Use a little bit at a time to start a fire. Waterproof, windproof, these work great. You can start a fire with just a spark with those. You can use a lighter or a match, of course. I also keep some emergency matches in here as well. These are windproof, waterproof, stormproof, right? These are good matches to keep. They do tend to burn a little quicker than I might like, but these are awesome. In addition to that, I keep a pencil sharpener in it. You can take little twigs, sharpen them up inside the pencil sharpener, use those shavings to help create a fire. The other thing that I have is a little Opinel knife. This is carbon steel blade, so you can use this to scrape a ferrocerium rod, get some sparks off of that in case you happen to lose your striker or whatever it might be. It also is an extra knife blade that I keep with me. So, you know, if all else fails, I still have this one in my fire starting kit. All right, the last two pieces of kit that I keep with me in my bag is a gombo or a pocket boy saw. This is by Silky. So if I want to cut off some branches from a tree, I can do that. It also works as a striker for the ferrocerium rods. It's nice, small, compact. It's not big enough to cut down a tree. However, if you have something in diameter about, like, you know, the size of your arm or whatever, you can use it to cut through it. One thing to keep in mind is that you can only cut as thick of a diameter as the blade. You can't cut something thicker than or longer than the blade is thick. So I am thinking of upgrading this into the Gomboy. It's a little bit bigger, so I can cut thicker pieces of wood as needed. Next is my Ontario Knife Company Rat 7. This is a 7-inch blade. The main purpose of this knife is not to cut things as you might think. Instead, what I use this for is processing firewood. So if I have a bundle of wood, I can baton this. So you have your piece of wood coming up like this, you put the blade down on top of the wood lengthwise, and you hit on the tip of the blade, and it'll split that wood for you, making it easy to process and starts fires quicker. So that's what I like to use that for. I don't like using an axe as much, or a hatchet. I just find that this is a little bit easier to use. All right, the last items that I carry with me, I keep around my waist in these pockets here on both sides. These are items that I want to have close to hand, so I don't have to start digging through my bag for little odds and ends, things like that. All right, so the items that I keep on my waist are, I always keep some wet ones with me. So if I'm out and I'm eating, you know, I can have a way to clean my hands up, or if my hands are dirty before I'm going to eat, I can always clean them up a bit. I get allergies. I like to keep a thing of Kleenex with me, blow my nose, clean up that way. Also, if needed, some extra fire starter. As I've mentioned earlier, I do like duplicity, so I always keep, you know, a lighter on my waist belt. I keep one in my fire kit. I keep one in my bush pot, and I also keep one in my pocket as well. I like to keep a Swiss Army knife. This is a nice one. So it's got its basic blade. It's got a secondary smaller blade. It has a saw with it, just a small little saw. This does work great though to also get some sparks off a ferrocerium rod. This one has a scissors on it. Always very handy to have. It has a bottle opener with a screwdriver and a wire stripper. And then it also has a can opener with a smaller screwdriver. On the back, it has a corkscrew. This can actually work not just to remove corks from bottles of wine, but it can also work to kind of drill a hole into a piece of wood if you're into bush crafting. On the other side, it has an owl as well, or a reamer, but it also has a hole through there which you can run some thread, and you can actually use this as a bit of a speed sawer, and so you can repair some of your hiking gear if needed. And then it also has a little hook. I like to use this to grab the bale on my bush pot, pull it off the stove. Keeps my hands from getting burnt. The other item on it is right back here. I keep a little stick pin. There's a little hole where that pin fits nicely into, and that's common with all these larger Swiss Army knives. Then it also has a toothpick and a small tweezers. When I'm hiking, I will often carry another one of these, very similar except a little bit bigger, in my front pocket as well. That one actually has an ink pen on it, but we'll cover that at another time. Then I carry Rolaids. These are an antacid, similar to Tums. So if I'm, you know, walking after I've eaten, packed everything up, start to get some indigestion, I can open these up, throw a couple in my mouth, good to go. I don't need to worry about digging into my bag to pull out the other ones from my medical kit. And then I also keep some Burt's Bees with me as well. Lips get chapped, and throw some on, helps alleviate that. If it's cold outside in the middle of winter, your lips will chap up more. So it's always good for that. You can also put some on your hands as needed. So some of the other items that I like to carry with me outside of just what's in my bag are as follows. So I mentioned before I like to carry larger pocket knives like Spyderco's. This is the Police 4. This is the original Police. I like these because they are larger, as I mentioned, but they're also one-handed opening. So if I need to deploy it quickly, I can. I recently picked up a Swiss Army knife. This is the Trekker. I haven't brought it with me yet, but I do like it. I don't like carrying belt knives with me. I've got, my bag on my hip, but also people see it and they get a little frightened from it. But this does have a one-handed opening blade. It is serrated at the top. With it, you got your bottle opener, can opener, and then it also has a small saw with it. So I like this knife. Works well for those intended purposes. It's a great option to have with you when you're out in the woods. I also like to carry with me a Leatherman. These are great. This is the first Leatherman I've owned. I bought this probably 20 plus years ago. It has a pliers on it, wire cutter. It's got a knife blade, a file, a couple screwdrivers. Other side, you've got a serrated blade, got a saw, then in there you got another couple screwdrivers, bottle opener, can opener. So I carry that with me. And then I like to usually carry either one of these two small knives. So this is a Swiss Army Cadet. I'll carry this with me oftentimes, and I'll do a different review on this at another date. But it's got its main blade, can opener, bottle opener, a small little file. These are great knives. This is the larger Swiss Army knife that I like to carry in my pocket that I mentioned earlier. So in addition to the tweezers and the toothpick, it does have an ink pen, which can be very handy if you need to write something down. But it also has a bit of a magnifying glass. So if I got a splinter or something to that effect, I can get in closer and pull that out. In addition to having a corkscrew on this, it also has a small little eyeglass piece, or a small little screwdriver for like an eyeglasses or something to that effect. Then, as I always say, 2 is 1, 1 is none. I keep another Bic lighter in my pocket. I keep another thing of Burt's Bees in my pocket as well. What I like about this type of a setup, though, is that if I happen to leave and I forget to grab a lighter, I've got 3 more in my bag, right? If I forget my chapstick, I've got 1 in my bag. These knives, I always carry a knife with me pretty much everywhere I go. Usually one of these 2 will be on me. And so if I forget to grab a Leatherman, though, I've got that in my bag already. If I forget to grab, or Swiss Army knife, if I don't grab my Leatherman, no big deal. I've got most of that on my bag. I do like carrying a Leatherman, though, just because you do have the pliers option on it. So if you need to get a better grip on something, you can. Okay, so a couple items I didn't have on the table today that I don't keep in my bag are things like my hiking poles. I really like to hike with hiking poles. I prefer to use 1 versus 2. However, I like to keep both with me at all times. You can use them to help set up your tarp. If you've got them strung between 2 trees, you can use the 2 of the poles to lift the ends of the tarp up, put it in more of a porch mode, so you can get a better view, so you're not just stuck with an A-frame type setup. I also like to keep a couple packets of liquid IV with me when I go out on a hike. It tastes good. It has a lot of electrolytes in it. You throw it into your bottle of water, mixes up really easily. So it just helps to rehydrate you after a long hike. I like to wear a hat, keep the sun off me, otherwise I burn pretty easily. And then I also like to keep a sweat rag with me because I do tend to sweat a lot. One item that I don't have that I'd like to pick up sometime in the future is a Garmin InReach Explorer. They're great. You can set preset text messages to go out to people. You connect up to satellites. There's an SOS button on it, so if you get hurt or lost, you can just hit that button and emergency response will come to you and save you. I do have a regular Garmin GPS device that I typically, have in my car. I don't tend to grab it that often. A lot of my hikes tend to be in state parks, so trail in, trail out. There's only been one occasion where I was hiking on a Spear hiking trail. We came off a spur trail. I was looking around trying to figure out which way I had to go, left or right, to get back to the car. Figured it out pretty easily. I do think that GPS devices are great, though. They have their place if you're in the boundary waters or out hiking in the wilderness. I think there's a lot of benefit to those. I do tend to hike in state parks, though, so it's really easy to find your way. County parks, there's maps around, so I don't think that there's a whole lot of practical need for a GPS device in those situations. You could sit there and make the same argument about a lot of what I carry with me, the big Rat-7 knife for processing firewood. What's the reality of needing to carry that, right? That's a lot of extra weight. My bag as a whole tends to come in about 14 pounds without the added weight of water or food. But the reality is emergencies can happen anywhere, right? We don't just end up in those situations because, it was a nice sunny day and we just lost track of time. Usually you find yourself in an emergency situation because, you get hurt, weather changes, whatever those situations might be that extend your stay in the woods. The whole point of that bag is to allow me to spend the night in the woods if I need to. So I've got my shelter in place. I've got ways to purify water, to collect water. I got ways to start a fire, stay warm, stay dry. And that's what the whole intent of that bag is for. It's really about just being able to extend my stay in the forest if I need to. It's not a bug out bag. It's not a get home bag. It's just me out in the woods, getting lost, getting hurt, whatever those situations might be. I'd rather carry that extra 14 pounds and never need it than need it and not have it with me. So is there anything that I'm not carrying in my bag that you think I should? Please let me know in the comments below. Thank you and have a great day.